the one fight that we never got.
This is not like this is an attempt at a joke coming because I say.
This is Justin Lesko, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
Coming up on the show today, we're going to look at fights that, even though we wanted them at the time, they never materialized.
We're also going to talk about a potential $1 million Jiu Jitsu match and a possible tough return.
Welcome to That Jiu Jitsu Podcast. There's been rumors of two fighters who may be coming back to the UFC. Both Brock Lesnar and Nick Diaz have rumors that they might be fighting again.
Uh-huh.
Do you care about either?
No.
I was going to say, do you care about either? And if you do, which one do you care more about?
But I care less about Brock Lesnar. I'm not interested in saying that.
Yeah. When DC beat Stipe the first time.
I know.
And he comes in the cage and they do this whole fake WWE thing. It was the most embarrassed I've ever been as a
Push me
fan.
now, get slapped later.
It was the most embarrassing thing.
It was awful. It was so.
I hate when they try to make the UFC like the WWE shtick. It's not the same. Stop trying to pretend that Brock Lesnar is relevant.
I'm just not interested in who's he gonna fight?
There's rumors of them doing John Jones versus Brock Lesnar.
Oh my God, Brock Lesnar would John Jones would get criminally charged again.
It's almost like we planned that joke.
Yeah, we didn't plan it, but John Jones would get criminally charged again for killing Brock Lesnar. It would be so fucking terrible what John Jones would do to him.
I get it. They want to bring in WWE fans to watch the UFC. And if you put on John versus Brock Lesnar,
yeah, you'll get
every MMA fan in the world's going to watch because it's John Jones. And you're going to double your audience because every WWE nerd in the world, I said it, is going to watch Brock Lesnar because they think he's got a chance because they think wrestling is real. And
they don't think wrestling is real.
What percentage of WWE fans over the age of 25 do you think wrestling's real?
0. Nobody thinks it's real.
When I was living in Florida, I was at a bar by myself watching the UFC fights. And it was BJ Penn versus, I think, Kenny Florian. And that's an irrelevant detail to the story. And I'm sitting there after work and I'm watching the fights. And
Would you sit at the bar or would you get a table?
I would sit whatever's available. It's like a Hooters. It's whatever's there on a fight night.
Did you go to Hooters?
There was one real close to my work, so I would just get
Would
you
you?
in the car.
So okay, judging by the story, I would say it seems as though you would engage people. But go ahead. So you're in Florida by yourself at a bar.
I'm watching the fights
at Hooters,
and there's a table of guys next to me, adjacent, and they're talking about the UFC, and I'm like, okay, they seem to know what they're talking about. And then one says to the other, without a shred of irony, "Who do you think would win in a fight?" And they said BJ Penn, and then they said the name of some I don't even know, some WWE wrestler. They thought it was real. They thought it was
okay,
UFC
that
Bellator.
Doesn't lead me to believe that they thought it was real. I don't think anybody. They know that it's like a scripted thing. Everybody knows it except for children.
And
I had a fucking nervous breakdown when Hulk Hogan lost to the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. I still think about it. My mother said that she was upstairs. So I had a little bit of a speech impediment when I was younger, apparently, because my dad was working night work, and the guy that he worked with had all this wrestling inside information, and I was a wrestling fanatic. So my dad's getting ready to leave.
Can you tell I touched on a nerve when I said the thing?
Right. So wait, I promise you that this will not change the opinion that I know that you already have of wrestling fans. So my dad says to my mom before he walks out the door for work, he goes, "You just better prepare yourself because Hulk Hogan's going to lose the title tonight, right?" So my mom's like, "Yeah, whatever." So another note. I think the statute of limitations has run out on this. But my grandmother worked for the cable company, so we used to get all the pay-per-views for free, right? So my mom's downstairs. Or my mom's upstairs. I'm downstairs, and she's on the phone. And apparently, next thing I know, I come walking up stairs, and I am in full blown hysterics, right? Like hysterics, like can't even breathe.
You were like 16?
No, I was 6.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
think
I
6,
misheard.
maybe 5.
I misheard you.
So she's like, "What is wrong?" And I go into this, ha, 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 ha. And I say, "Holt," because I couldn't say Hulk.
Sure.
So I called him Holt Hoden. I said, "Holt, Holt, Holt, Hoden lost the belt." And, my mother was just at that time, very caring, compassionate woman. Yeah, she was very empathetic towards me. So she, in her calm demeanor, jumps up and says, "Turn that goddamn television off." And that was it.
That was the worst night of your life?
No, well, he won the belt back from Sergeant Slaughter a year later at WrestleMania 7.
Oh, okay.
So.
Back to adult life.
I mean, it's...
So Bellator is like started the whole rumor thing where they were gonna have Brock Lesnar and come in, and then they were gonna make the fight between Brock and Fedor, which was like forever. Who would win? The best.
Can we agree
world?
that Fedor would fucking kill him, like a prime Fedor and a prime Brock Lesnar?
I agree, and if it was 2010. I'd be more excited for let's get these guys to fight. I still think in 2010 Fedor destroys Brock, but at that time it made more sense.
Yep.
I'm just not into it right now.
I have no desire to watch Bellator put on these Hoist, Shamrock 7, Rampage, Vanderlei 5, Chuck Tito, what was it, 3? Who the fuck cares?
But are there fights right now that we never got to see that you would want to watch? Can you think of any fights where it was two fighters in their prime who, for whatever reason, never fought, but they could right now, and you would still be into it? What about GSP versus Anderson Silva?
Not now.
You're not into it now?
No.
Side note, have you seen the picture of GSP with hair now?
Yeah, it's weird.
It's unsettling.
Yeah, I just can't. I don't want to look at it. What I want to do is channel my inner Ace Ventura, and when he's doing his workout, come up behind him, rag a chloroform, fucking unconscious, shave his head back down.
I'd watch that fight though. I'd watch Anderson Silva versus GSP.
I mean, I would watch it, but Anderson Silva is just not himself. He should have retired. Every time he fights, it's just he should have after he broke his leg with the Weidman thing. He went out on his shield. I'm good with that. I'd love to. I think GSP can still compete. I want to see him fight Khabib.
I see GSP versus Khabib. So this is my thing with GSP. I'm a big fan of GSP. I really like the way he approaches fighting. I like his mentality. I like the way he trains, and he can be accused of being not the most entertaining fighter in the world. And that's sort of the same thing with Khabib. I think that a lot of times when you have two very good wrestlers who want the takedown, that sort of neutralizes and you get a striking match. And I think GSP is a better striker in his prime than Khabib is now in his prime. So I think there are compelling elements to that fight, but
I don't know. I think I remember the one fight that I really wanted to see was Randy Couture versus Fedor. Back in the day.
That was
and then Randy Couture left the UFC because he wanted to fight Fedor.
Yeah, they were trying to make that fight happen. He left the UFC to get it,
and it never played out. That's the one that I was really. But other than that, no. There's no fights that I was oh, that fell apart. I really, really wish I could have seen that.
Well, I know you already said that you're not into anything Anderson Silva, but I always wanted to see prime Anderson Silva versus young up-and-comer John Jones.
John Jones would kill him.
At a time, Pre-Weidman fights for Anderson Silva versus John Jones, that's a good fight. That's a fun fight. I don't think it goes decisively in either direction. I think that's a good fight.
I mean, if you're talking about prime Anderson Silva versus 22-year-old John Jones, yeah, but prime Anderson Silva versus prime John Jones, it's a no. Once John Jones gets his hands on him.
But when I started thinking about like fights that never happened that I wish would have happened.
Yeah, I mean, like there's no like typically MMA is still in the early stages of it in the grand scheme of things. So when you have these what do you think the biggest fight in MMA history is?
Biggest fight, like money wise, in recent memory would have to be Khabib versus Conor.
Yep, that's it. Like,
right?
And then it would have to be Jones versus DC. And like none of those Ronda Rousey fights were. I mean, it was just lack of competition. It was like who they feeding to her next, who they feeding to her.
Yeah,
next,
it was the same as Royce Gracie versus everyone at UFC
or
1.
Jimmo.
He was that far ahead.
Like anytime you start hearing rumors of a fight like when these up and comers start making a name for themselves and they start making waves, like typically the fights that you're like craving, they end up happening. They might not happen when you want them to happen, but very rarely is.
If you wait long enough, Bellator will make the fight happen.
Yeah, seriously.
A fight that isn't necessarily like, oh, we never got it, and I often look back at like where a timeline sort of skewed a little bit. If Conor fights Rafael dos Anjos and RDA doesn't get hurt and doesn't pull out of that fight, so we don't get the Nate Diaz fight, like the Conor Floyd fight might never happen.
Oh yeah.
Like the tail end of Conor McGregor's career.
Well, that
could be completely different. That was supposed to be it was supposed to be Conor's first chance at being like the double champ, and it was going to be Dos Anjos, who was the lightweight champion, fighting Conor McGregor, who is the featherweight champion. Dos Anjos gets hurt like within a month, right? It was a couple weeks before the fight was supposed to happen. So Nate Diaz steps in, beats Conor. Then Conor does the rematch with Nate in like August that same year. I don't know that Conor beats Dos Anjos. I don't know that they do a rematch because it's like the championship versus champion thing. The Nate Diaz fights like I think pushed Conor more mainstream, which led to the whole Floyd thing. So when you look at like fights that didn't happen that we didn't get, I don't think anyone's clamoring to get like, oh, we got to get that Dos Anjos McGregor fight. But if that fight happens, everything goes in a different direction.
Yeah,
it's like a ripple in time. Goes a different way.
Changes the trajectory of his career.
Maybe he's
maybe
he's still the featherweight champion. Maybe he loses to Dos Anjos and goes back to 45 and actually defends a belt.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Who knows? But again, you put that fight together on Bellator in 10 years, it doesn't change how it all played out. So like the whole consequence of the fight is kind of gone, which I think is sort of circling back. Brock Lesnar versus Fedor, the consequence is gone. At the time when we were all clamoring for that fight, it was who's really the best heavyweight in the world. The winner of that fight now is just who's the best old guy who fights at heavyweight.
I agree. There's nothing. There's really nothing like a Nick Diaz. Like I'll watch a Diaz brother fight anytime. You know what I mean? But
I've never gotten the appeal of Nick Diaz.
I just watched him knock out Robbie Lawler the other day.
Like, there was that streak where Nick Diaz was, like, untouchable and just beating everybody. And he was exciting. And, like, so when I say I never got the appeal of Nick Diaz, that's maybe an overstatement. I get why at the time when he was beating everybody, there was the appeal to Nick Diaz. My man hasn't won a fight in, like, a decade. Why are people, oh, my God, Nick Diaz coming back into the UFC and it's huge. Like, is it?
It's not.
I just don't get I never really got the appeal of like, oh my God, Nick Diaz.
Last time Nick Diaz won a fight, ready for this?
BJ Penn, right?
Yup. I was at a wedding that night. Fun fact, Diana J was also at that wedding that night, but with another person, and I was with another date as well. It's the last time you want to fight. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
We're going on 9 fucking years since.
Now,
since
he
you
had
wanna
the fight with Anderson Silva. That was
He's
a
only
no
had
contest.
3 fights since then.
Yeah.
He's 0-2-1, but he lost that fight.
Yeah. But, like, so again, it's a Diaz brother, so we're going to hear a rumor they're going to come back. Then they're going to say they want more money. And then nothing will ever happen for a year. Then in a year, we'll repeat the cycle. And maybe Nate gets one fight in 3 years. They have this like cult-like status, the Diaz brothers. And they're great fighters. And they were great fighters in their prime. But like, let's not pretend that Nick Diaz is coming back to beat Kamaru Usman.
He would get mauled. That fight with him and BJ Penn was such a good fight. I remember watching it. I didn't watch it that night because I was at a fucking wedding.
Making eyes at Diana J.
No, I didn't even know Diana J. Apparently, she was staring at me from across the room.
I buy that.
Can't really blame her.
I buy it. And I get the people like that mentality of the like, we'll fight anyone all the time, whatever. But I'll watch the fight if he comes back and fights because I watch every fight. But people get so caught up on oh my God, the Diaz brothers. I can't believe they're coming back. Well, I don't think they actually are.
Yeah.
They think that they need the UFC. They think the UFC needs them more than they need the UFC.
No, I think Nate's gonna fight again. I don't really care about Nick.
I don't know. I think Nate fights again, but I don't know who. I don't know under what circumstance. And like they're talking about Nate fighting again against Masvidal. They're just trying to run back that big money fight between the two of them for the BMF belt.
You can't blame the UFC for...
No, they're trying to get the maximum value out of the guys with star power. I think that's the loop that Nate's going to always be in. I don't think he'll be a real, quote-unquote, real champion. He'll fight money fights for the UFC, but he did not do well against Masvidal.
No, I don't see how that fight goes any differently. Like, you want to blame the cut for that? That's one thing. But he was getting shit kicked out of him way before that cut happened.
Yeah.
And the cut happened well, I shouldn't say way before that cut happened because the cut, I think, happened in the first round. It just got progressively worse. But it was...
When people blame a cut, like, the person had to hit them to cause that cut.
It's not.
So it's
did he run his face into a fucking post?
He didn't fall
the
down.
guy that he was fighting gave that cut. So okay.
Yeah, it sucks. Like I get why you'd be disappointed the fight gets stopped because of a cut, but there's skill involved in administering a cut to somebody. The one fight that we never got.
This is not like this is an attempt at a joke coming because I see
we just never got that Ronda Rousey versus Floyd Mayweather fight that Joe Rogan was talking so much about.
He really thought that she could beat him in a fight.
He really thought she could beat the male 135ers.
Yeah.
Then Cowboy Cerrone's on Rogan's podcast and Rogan says that about like she could beat Floyd, and Donald Cerrone was just like, yeah, man, she can't punch. I think he said, man, she's throwing wingers. Like,
yeah.
There's a GIF that gets circulated of her like shadow boxing, and it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. She looked. So the Holly Holm fight, it was bad, obviously for her, but and even though the Nunez fight was significantly shorter, she looked like an amateur against Amanda Nunes.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, again, there was a time when she was literally beating every contender in under a minute, and it was impressive to watch, but let's just dial back the hyperbole a little bit that she's going to beat the best boxer of all time.
Yeah. I mean, and like the pool of contenders was not deep.
Yeah.
So, there wasn't really quality or quantity, and she was just fucking... That one fight against Kat Zingano, I think she won it in like 14 seconds.
Yeah, well, Kat Zingano had a bad game.
The
run right at her.
fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. I remember when Ronda was like at the peak of like just beating everyone in such short periods of time, we would go out to watch every fight because I'm not paying money for that because they were under a minute. I'm spending $60 on a fight. Like,
yeah, so I'm not going to spend $60 on a fight. I'm going to spend $80 on Captain and Gingers at the Ale House.
You know what drink Junior turned me on to? It's been my drink for a little while
Is it
now.
called an old fashioned?
No,
Is it called a
no,
Manhattan?
no. You go whiskey ginger.
Is it called a what is that?
It's a drink that's delicious.
What is it? Just whiskey and ginger ale? Is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
whiskey ginger.
So, what kind of whiskey?
See, I like a nice Irish whiskey.
All right. So it's like, is it like Jack and Ginger?
I like a nice Irish whiskey.
Jack and Ginger.
In the Jiu Jitsu news section,
Yes. I am. Yeah, I'm actually really pumped for this. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but all right, no one knows what we're talking about. So go ahead.
Gordon Ryan on Instagram made a post that he would bet $1 million
I was watching this happen.
that he could beat Andre Galvo in a grappling match. No time limit, sub only grappling match for $1 million.
I don't think it was a no time limit. Oh, it might have been like a 20-minute sub only minute. Whatever. I was watching it happen on Instagram. There is no way Andre Galvo fights him. And Galvo saying that he's going to fight him in 2021, it is going to be very ugly. It's going to be very ugly.
I don't think it ever happens. I don't think it ever happens. If it does happen, I'd just say we just no steroid testing. Let them juice out as much
both
as
of
they
them are
want.
going to be
Just go for
fucking
it.
sauced out of their minds, and Gordon's going to submit him.
I agree that Gordon's going to submit him. I don't think it ever happens. I think it'd be a close match, though.
I mean, I don't. I don't.
I mean,
The closest anybody's come recently to Gordon was Lucas Barbosa, and if Gordon would have had another 2 minutes, he would have submitted him in ADCC. But
I think Galvo is more of a better grappler than.
yeah, but Galvo's going to be close to 40 when that fight goes down. I don't know. I don't think there's no way Galvo wins.
Do you think you watch the whole Instagram thing happen?
Yeah.
Do you think Gordon said it actually thinking the match would happen, or did he say it to be inflammatory on Instagram?
Galvo said it.
Gordon said he wanted to have a match, and Galvo said,
And he's like, we offered you money. I'll put $1 million of my own money. And he was like, Galvo was like, $1 million, let me do it. Or let's do it. So Gordon said that he would put up $1 million and give Galvo 2-1 odds. So Galvo would have to put up 500,000, which Galvo kind of agreed to, and then all the fans jumped on it and started reposting and putting it into their stories, and they were trying to get a third party to kind of broker it, as a holding,
like they do in boxing, where a bunch of rich guys put a bunch of money
escrow
in.
it in. You know what I mean? They were trying to get a third party to escrow the money, and it didn't happen. I didn't hear anything from Galvo. I didn't see Galvo posting anything after that, but Gordon's talking about doing not the absolute again this year, but he's talking about doing a weight class in 2021. He's going to do both the trials this year, West Coast and East Coast, and he's going to do a super fight with Galvo if Galvo accepts it. My guess is that Galvo will never, ever accept it.
I think it's pretty high risk reward for Galvo. Galvo, I think right now is really living off the legacy. You know what I mean?
So Galvo started going back after him with tell Nikki to learn how to deal with the Rotolos. Tell Ethan Krendelstein to learn how to deal with the Rotolos. And he was like, Nikki knows he had a dog shit. Gordon replied, Nikki knows he had a dog shit match. And Ethan was beating the shit out of the one Rotolo, and he should have won that. And then, this is actually very interesting. I don't know if you saw what happened with, apparently they had this huge camp in Miami, and all these top name guys were there, like Gary, Gordon, JT Torres, Kynan, a bunch of other people. But Andre says, why don't you tell Gary to learn how to beat JT or something? And Gordon wrote back, he said, yeah, JT beats Gary in closely contested matches that involve points. But if it was a no time limit match, Gary would destroy him, like the time in Miami that I made JT look like a white belt.
Oh, I did not see
And I'm like,
this.
man, leave JT Torres alone. JT Torres is a good dude.
He didn't do anything to you.
Yeah, like, Joe, what the fuck did JT Torres do? And then
Yeah.
then Gordon said that JT wouldn't sign off on releasing the footage, and it's like, Gordon Ryan, come on, man.
Yeah. I understand you want to fight Galvo, but like,
Come on,
let's leave
man.
the bystanders as
Yeah,
bystanders.
JT Torres is just trying to do his thing. Bring him into it.
I think
Not to mention, JT Torres is a two-time ADCC champion.
Do you think
Put
that,
some respect on his name when you speak it, Gordon Ryan.
I'm gonna edit that out because that was awfully aggressive of what you just said to Gordon Ryan. So I don't think you want him coming
Where?
to you.
You don't know where I live.
Do you think Gordon is really pushing for this match because he doesn't feel like there's anyone left for him to really compete
and he
against?
said it. He said nobody will compete against me. He has a huge match coming up in 3 weeks against Matthias Deniz. They're both ADCC reigning champions. Matthias, I don't think, has ever been submitted at black belt in competition, but Gordon's going to submit him too.
Okay.
I mean, Gordon's going to submit anybody he goes against.
Okay. Did you see that Dana said that the Ultimate Fighter is coming back?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
They're deciding this week who the coaches are.
How do you feel? Are you?
I'll watch it. I've had a hiatus.
Yeah.
My batteries are recharged.
I think the whole world's had.
I chose not to eat breakfast with the Ultimate Fighter. I'm going to choose not to eat with you. You're not going to eat with me? No, I'm going to recharge my batteries. Okay, and I'm going to help the Ultimate Fighter seal the deal, close the deal.
I hope they reworked the format a little bit. I think it was.
I just think that I understand you want to try to mix things up and keep it fresh, but like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Just go back to the way it was. Go back to the original format. Just separate them into 2 teams of 8. Flip a coin for whoever picks the first fight, and then from there.
Do you remember early on when it used to be they would do challenges and then the winner of the team challenge got to pick the fight?
Yeah, and actually on the first season, like, there were a couple people voted off without even fighting. If you go back and watch first season, like, they voted a couple people off.
I don't remember that.
Like a Survivor kind of thing. But yeah, separate, bring 16 people in or bring 32 of them in and have them fight for a spot in the house and get it down to 16. Split them up into teams of 8 and then let them fight.
Yeah.
And if you win the fight, you pick the next match and just keep it going that way.
I did not like the seasons where it was like the winner is the champion of a new division. I didn't like those. I did like the seasons where it was like the winner gets a title shot.
There was 2 of them.
Yeah, Tim Elliott got the shot against Mighty Mouse.
Yep.
And then it was the Matt Serra versus GSP.
Yep.
And led to one of the greatest upsets in the history of the sport.
Yeah, it's up there. Top 2 or 3. I think it's number 1. But
You think it's the number 1 upset in the sport?
yeah. Holly Holm was probably number 2.
I would put it in that order because I thought, and this is going to sound like I'm rewriting history, I maintained the entire time Holly Holm was on her way up in the UFC that she would be the one to beat Ronda. That was my prediction for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, according to Vegas, I think Holly Holm was the biggest underdog to ever win a title fight.
No, we talked about earlier about like where the ripple in time goes off. Holly Holm wins a very narrow split decision against Raquel Pennington.
Yep.
If one judge scores that fight, one round of that fight differently, Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey never happens.
Yep.
Right? Like, crazy. When you look at like how things can get from where they are to somewhere else and the road it takes in between, crazy. Side note. Did you see your boy Conor McGregor was at the Tour de France?
No, I mean, can he, like, dude, just come back and fight? Like,
So on the day we're recording this, there was news that Conor McGregor, USADA showed up to test him, and he submitted to the test, but he was like, "What's going on, UFC? I'm retired," or something in a tweet about how he got tested.
Right.
I don't think they test you if you're retired. I don't think you're.
No, he didn't take his name out of the pool.
No. So, as we've said in previous episodes, like, he's for sure going to fight again, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100% he's going to fight again.
So we have in the offing a big fight between between Khabib and Gaethje.
Yeah.
Do you think they slide Conor into the winner of that fight? If Khabib wins, he fights Khabib for a rematch right away.
If the GSP thing falls through. Gaethje could be a fucking nightmare.
He could really spoil the party for
a fucking nightmare for Khabib. We'll see though.
I'm excited for that fight, and we'll break that fight down more as it gets closer.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to do a whole episode just on the breakdown of that fight because it's going to be a good one, I think. Looking not at the UFC's trying to make a lot of money, objectively talent-wise, where do you think Conor ranks at 155 right now? Not thinking like Dana's going to put him in a title shot to make money. Who do you think would be a logical fight for Conor McGregor?
Ferguson or Poirier.
Okay.
Ferguson or Poirier.
I would agree with Ferguson. I think I wouldn't be upset if Conor fought the loser of Khabib Gaethje.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. But I thought, they're already fighting, so.
I'm just saying, like, overall in the
he already fought Khabib. He already fought Khabib. So Gaethje, Ferguson, Poirier, any one of those three, to get him, or Khabib, Ferguson, Poirier, any one of those three, depending on who wins the championship fight. If Gaethje wins, then fight either Khabib, Ferguson, or Poirier. If Khabib wins, then either Gaethje, Ferguson, or Poirier, and beat that person, and you're good.
Do you think if he's not Conor McGregor, he's this fighter with these skills at this age and this time in his life, do you think you rank him still in the top 5, talent-wise alone?
Yes. Yeah, he's really good. He's really good. He's in the top 5. He might be number 5, but he's in the top 5.
He's in the conversation.
Yeah.
Do you think Conor fights before we see Gordon versus Galvo?
Yeah, because we're going to see Gordon versus Galvo in October of 2021. I think Conor fights before then.
Do you think... I think with Conor right now, there's 2 paths where they could just have him do the money fights, have him fight Nate again, have him fight Masvidal for BMF title, or they could put him in the competitive version where he fights the people we just listed.
As long as he's capable of competing at that high of a level and he has a shot to win those matches, you have to explore that route.
I think he comes back in the competitive lane and one loss the rest of his career to the right.
Yeah, but if he's still capable of competing at a high level and for championships, you have to go that route with him.
I agree.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget that you can watch the video version of every episode on YouTube. You just have to search for That Jiu Jitsu Podcast. If you want to follow the show on Instagram, you can follow us at that_jiu-jitsu_podcast. If you want to follow me directly, you can follow me at m_Callahan106.
If you want to follow me directly, you can follow me at Justin Lesko. If you want to support the show, which we really appreciate, check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. We have tiers there that start as little as $3. You get bonus content, early access to episodes, you can get technique breakdowns, you can get instructionals, all things you can't get just by subscribing to this audio feed or on the YouTube page. So check it out, patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. Say wrestling's fake.
Say go Birds.
Go Birds.
Wrestling's not fake.
Still real to you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.